The Earley Show will begin after a brief word from today's sponsor, Answering Legal. Visit answeringlegal.com to learn more about our 24/7 virtual receptionist team.
I've been utilizing Answering Legal for my firm since 2015, and truth be told, it was a game changer for me. I can be anywhere, and I'm getting my phones answered by Answering Legal. A strategic partner, as I call Answering Legal, provides a great reward. What is that reward? It's time. Time for whatever I want to do. As a private practitioner, I would highly recommend Answering Legal to other private practitioners. Now, every call goes answered.
All right, welcome back to the Earley Show, sponsored by our friends at Answering Legal. Today we have a real treat. I'm really excited to get into it. We have Jennifer Gore-Cuthbert, who is a very successful personal injury attorney, entrepreneur in Georgia, really doing big things. We're going to learn a lot from her in this episode. So as always, sharpen your pencils. There are going to be plenty of writer-downers in this episode, I'm sure. So I'm really excited to get into it. Jen, thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to chat with you and just talk about what we love, which is PI firms.
Well, we were just chatting before this, and you and I have a passion for this stuff. I think it really juices us both up. We enjoy the business of law. We enjoy, talking about it, learning about it. I'm a self-admitted, geek about this stuff. I really do enjoy it. And, I've seen you, we've met on the conference trail, and I just wanted to get you on the show and kind of see what you're doing. And I'm sure it's going to be very helpful for a lot of people. So, we met at Miami NTL in January, had a nice conversation, and that I just see that we have a lot of stuff in common, right? We're both PI business owners, both scaling, right? We're both really into, sharpening our axe, right, as much as possible, learning, getting into this stuff. And, I feel like the business of law is something that we're both really, passionate about. Some attorneys are passionate about that. Some attorneys are not. But I'm sure we're going to get into, the business of law as well as, a lot of other, interesting topics that, again, I think can be very instructive for a lot of people who are going to be listening to this. So I like to sort of start at the start. Could you just share with us, Jen, your upbringing? What did mom and dad do, and your brothers and sisters? What did it kind of look like as you were coming up?
Yeah. So you mentioned we're both like scaling. I would first like to say that, my drive for scaling is really coming from a place of like, I wanted to constantly build a better law firm. And I've just found that required me to scale it, So like each turn, it's not just scaling for scaling's sake. It's that my experience has been that the larger my law firm has gotten, the more people that we've hired, it's become a better experience for our clients, and it's become a better experience for me as the owner. So I don't know if you would agree with this, but isn't it more fun to run now than when it was just you and one person?
100%, and honestly, I had problems then. I have problems now, but these problems are better problems.
Better problems. So I think like right off the bat, we have to say that I think that there is a lot of people out there that don't understand why you would scale a law firm or grow it aggressively. And I think just my experience has been, it's way more fun. I get to spend more time doing the stuff I love, less time doing the stuff that I'm not that good at and I don't love. And it's like more cool opportunities come to you. You get to do more interesting things. You get to be more niche. There's just so many great things that have happened by scaling. So I hope that people out there can, hear that message, because it's something that I think is a myth out there that like more people, more problems, or, when it comes to my background, I grew up in New York, and my parents both own their own businesses, but my dad was really like more of the business person. He had a variety of businesses, and then my mom cut hair. So she, had like a side hustle business. At one point we had it in our house.
Oh, nice.
But I mean, my worldview was that people work for themselves. So that I've come to find out that that's a unique worldview.
Yeah, for
um,
sure.
but the cool thing is, I mean, I think I had a somewhat difficult childhood, and I think you alluded to that as well. And
Totally.
you know, I've tried to be like a very glasses half full person, and I think all of our problems are really opportunities in disguise. But candidly, I think I had a kind of rough childhood in a sense. I mean, my parents, I remember when I was 14, they took me to get my working papers. And like there was an expectation that I was going to work from a very young age. And I didn't need to work for money. It was just part of my parents' mindset, which, in the end of it has been a great thing for me, right? But,
Absolutely.
I had a lot of stress on me at a very young age.
Why do you say that? What kind of stress?
I moved out when I was 17. My parents were, they put a lot of pressure on me. I remember like if I would come home from school and I would have a B plus, they would be like, well, you should have had an A plus. Nothing was really ever enough. Um, very intense. My parents would always tell me, you could do anything. You could be the president. You could be, all these things. And like, basically I felt my whole life that I was like not living up to where I should be because they had such high standards for me. And it's an intense amount of pressure. And so my whole mindset from when I was a teenager was, I've got to get out of here. So like I moved out when I was 17 and, I wanted to get away from that environment. But it made me who I am. And I know that I have an intense work ethic. I can outwork anybody. I can figure anything out. I'm incredibly resourceful. And I also am crazy confident. I think because my parents told me so much my whole life that I could do anything that got into my psyche.
You start to believe, right?
Yeah, I have like crazy confidence. I could do anything if you give me enough time, which is like such an advantage. But I also have this like relentless desire to push and do more because of the way I was raised.
I'm with you 100%. My mom, I grew up, single parent household. My father became homeless. He was a very successful entrepreneur. A lot of people listening to this know this story, but very bad trauma. There was alcoholism, addiction, and she somehow turned knobs in my brain that convinced me that I can achieve things. Right. And
this is so important.
Yeah.
This is a really important story. The narrative you tell your kids about their lives sets them up for the rest of their lives.
Yeah. For better or worse.
For better or worse.
As a parent, I'm always mindful of what I'm messaging, right? Because they're looking at dad. How's dad responding? Right. And so I never try to put pressure on them. Just, try to, just foster a great environment. For any dads out there, a good book I'm reading is called The Daily Dad.
My favorite, Ryan Holiday.
Yeah, it's fantastic. It's cool. My wife got it for me for Father's Day, and I keep sending it to lawyers that I know. I'm like, you got to read this book, right? Dads, right?
The Daily Stoic, Ryan Holiday.
Yes, you know it.
We're big into stoicism over here. Yeah, I love his stuff. I actually hired a parenting coach several years ago to like help me re-navigate how I wanted to parent because although I love my parents, I feel like, I wasn't sure that I wanted to like recreate that same situation for my kids. And so I've put a lot of energy into trying to be a more intentional parent and, but I have taken a lot of the things my parents did. Like my kids, I do want them to have a work ethic. So my kids have chores now. They have a lot of responsibility. And I think it's okay as long as it's guided in a way that could be more positive in a sense. So like putting pressure on kids, there's a way to do it where it doesn't like destroy their, you have to be loving, I think like Gary Vee says it best, it's like loving, but firm.
Absolutely. I love Gary Vee. I love practically everything he does, but I didn't even know you could get, there's parental coaching. I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of parallels between managing people and managing children.
No question.
A lot
No
of your
question.
blind spots will be the same in both areas.
Yeah.
Developing people, leading people, being somebody that people want to follow. There's a lot of stuff in there. And I know for me, before I got the parenting coach, I was super impatient with my kids.
Mm-hmm.
So there's this level of impatience that a lot of us entrepreneurs live in.
No question.
And what ends up happening is you end up overcompensating for your kids because, and you can do this with team members as well. It's like, it's easier if I just do this. And then it's like, you've never built that person up to stand on their own because you're constantly overriding and overcompensating for them.
Yeah, it's so hard. It's so hard to be a parent. It's so hard to be a business owner, right? Especially as we scale. As we said, we got big problems all the time, which is a blessing, but we got to figure it out. We have people, but ultimately the buck stops with us. All right, so you left home around 17. Now, if I heard you on the podcast, I believe you said sort of like 18 to 21, you had some adversity.
Bad times. I was just naive. I moved out. I had a much older boyfriend. I'm sure to my parents, like nightmare. He was a musician. He rode motorcycles. He ended up getting killed in a motorcycle accident.
Sorry.
I was in a bad accident, almost died. And so I think I was in a very rebellious stage of my life. And I find a lot of entrepreneurs are like, have that DNA where they're like we say all the time, like I was a rebel without a cause and like now I have a cause.
Yeah.
So like you need to have a place to direct your power. My daughter, she's 10. And I say to her all the time, you are an amazing, powerful person. We just need to use your power for good and not evil.
100%. I mean, I just honestly like running a law firm is sorry, but parenting is like so much harder. I feel it's just so much more.
It will hit all of your triggers.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, it's where you live. You can't. I mean, that's your life. It's hard. So I wanted to ask you. You talked about having your identity stolen.
My identity stolen by my boss. I was in these accidents. I got involved in a federal lawsuit where I had to defend that my identity was stolen. I mean, it was a really low point. And, I think that also kind of like set me up for who I am today because I had to get really serious at a young age to deal with all those problems. And whenever you have like a near-death experience, I think it does kind of like, I wasn't like just a normal 19, 20-year-old that just like having fun and partying. Like I was dealing with really serious issues. And so I just thought, okay, I'm going to be like really serious for the next 10 years so that like when I'm 30, like I can have a life like other people can't.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I went to law school, I buckled down, I like went really hard because in business, I went to business school for undergrad, but I was, working full time and I was an athlete and like I was just doing so much at once that nothing was I doing like with 100% my attention. And so when I went to law school, I was like, I'm going to do this 100%. I'm going to like double down. And so when I went to law school, I moved to Atlanta and I just really committed and I kind of like recreated a whole new world for myself. So like I created a whole new brand, a whole new identity. And like, I was just like, I'm going to be a personal injury lawyer from the day I went to law school and because of my case. And I just put like 130% in. And just from there forward, it's like my whole life changed.
So you went to law school and then you get out. What'd you do when you graduated?
I started the law firm the day I got my license.
Okay, so that's pretty crazy. But I like crazy.
I went like full tilt. Now, I was working full time. I was working like 30 hours a week throughout law school because I switched into the night program and I would work as a paralegal during the day. And by the time I was like a 3L, I was pretty much like running the firm that I was at. Mm. So I was the receptionist, the legal assistant, the settlement coordinator, the paralegal. I was doing all these different things. I was the marketing assistant. So I felt really good that like, if I could do this, I could probably do this. I failed the bar the first time I took it, and then I had to retake it. And I was like 3 months pregnant when I took it the first time and failed it. And then I had to take it again 9 months pregnant. So
Wow.
it was very
Holy
stressful.
smoke. Wow.
Yeah.
So, I feel like being an entrepreneur, it can be a very, there's a certain instability. It's like kind of like it can be chaotic sometimes, right? And personally, I'm kind of comfortable in that space because I had volatility, as a kid. It sounds like you did too, in your sort of, teen years. And I feel like most people don't like chaos. Like, I don't love it, but I'm kind of comfortable there. But like, if you look at really successful entrepreneurs, they're okay with everything not being okay all the time, right? And the law profession.
I agree with you. I have to be careful that I don't create chaos for chaos sake.
Oh, 100%.
Totally. Bright, shiny object. But I will say that I get bored if things stay the same for too long. My issue is boredom.
Mm-hmm.
So like, I am one of those people, I'm like anti-routine. I mean, I have certain routines I do, but I like change. I like disrupting. I like, okay, we did this. We've mastered it. Like, how are we going to take it to the next level? Like, my worst nightmare is like Groundhog's Day.
Well, you're just running in place.
Just the same thing. So I think that part of my personality can be really good in some ways and obviously can create chaos in others.
Is it like this for you? Because this is the way it is for me. I find I'm just like hair on fire. We're going, we're growing. Let's go. They're like, chill out. We're putting this into place. Give it some time. That's a challenge that I have, is like my pace expectation. Is it like that with you or no?
It was like that in my journey in earlier years. What I can say is that my life really changed when I focused a lot on the culture of my firm. And I started writing down, what do I stand for and what do I stand against? And I started writing notes about when people came to work with me, what made me want to love working with them and what made me hate working with them. And I found out over time, it was like we didn't have the same values. So what has been amazing in the last 2 years, really, maybe 2 to 3 years, is that I've assembled a tribe of people that work for me that run at my same speed. And
so they speak your language.
That's been way more fun. So like a lot of the people on our leadership team, they're like, go, go, go people. That's I don't feel like I have to not be myself to be with them.
Right. I just find sometimes I have to like kind of pump the brakes, but to your point, culture, as we said before we started the show, it's the magic sauce. It's culture. And law firms are notoriously horrible at that, very insensitive to culture. I'm hypersensitive to building the right culture. That's where you really take off, I feel like.
Well, it's more to me like a quality of life. Like, we spend so much of our time working, and I can tell you, like, I find it more fun to work with people that are radically smart and want to do big things and are ambitious than like someone who's mediocre. And so my frame of mind was just like, I get excited to come work with these people. I don't get excited to come and work with these people. And as you grow a firm, like, you're not going to feel that way about everyone in your organization, but like the people who I have a lot of interaction with, I have a rule, like I have to really love working with them.
Yeah.
It's just like if you have an executive assistant, they're literally involved in your life in such a level. Like, you can't hate your executive assistant. Like, it's just not going to work. My leadership team, I want to love working with them. My attorneys, I want to love working with them because they are a big part of my life. Now, I might not have that level of interaction with like the legal assistant, you know?
Of course. I hope people are writing notes because that's really important. Any lawyer building a practice needs an executive assistant. When I did that, Jen, I was so untethered, honestly. I think it was Ryan McKean who mentioned that somewhere online or maybe somewhere. And I said, I'm going to get an executive assistant. Once I did that, whoa, everyone should have one. It's just, it's negligence not to have one. It's crazy.
Well, if you don't have an assistant, you are your assistant.
100%. So
So
true.
yeah, and your needs for your assistant can change over different parts of like seasons of your life. And I know for me, I have very different needs often than my male counterparts. So for me, my assistant, I use her for like a lot more for personal assistant type stuff
Okay. Yeah.
because that tends to bog me down more than some of the other stuff.
Yep.
Like I'm like notorious for telling everyone, you need an at-home staff as well as a law firm staff. So I have like a housekeeper, I have a pool guy, a yard guy, I have a nanny, I have an executive assistant, and I don't cook, I don't clean, I don't do laundry. Like I try to live in my house like it's a hotel.
Well, you're buying back your time, it sounds like.
As a woman, we can get in the situation where half
Mhm.
of our time is consumed with managing this household.
Yeah, no
So
question.
I've offloaded a lot of that.
Yeah.
Now, a lot of men have a stay-at-home wife who does those things, so it may not be like really a top issue.
Sure, sure. Well, I think that goes to carving out a life that you want and that you where you want to literally where you want to live, right? And being there and designing it in a way that gives you everything you're looking for, so you can make the most of your time because our time is limited, right? We
Well,
have to
yeah.
leverage.
And I was thinking, like, I definitely don't think John Morgan's doing his own laundry.
Probably not. Probably not. I don't think he's cutting the grass this
I don't
afternoon.
think he's cutting the grass. I don't think he's tending to the pool. I mean, unless there's something like if you love gardening, don't give that up.
100%. If you love that, yeah. But if you can't stand it, one thing John talked about on the Earley Show, he was our first guest. He's talked about this before. We got into it. Ruthless delegation. He said,
Ruthless.
ruthless, like just cutthroat ruthless. Once he did that in the 80s, I feel like from what he was telling me, he just went up vertical, just like stratosphere.
So, what do you think is the reason why people don't delegate?
Control. We're lawyers. We're so type A. You
Ego.
have to get rid of that. Yeah, ego. It's only me. Only I can do it perfectly. I'm like, get it off my desk.
Well, I say this to anyone who struggles delegating: do it for 1 week. Like
Yeah.
whenever I've wanted to hire a new role, I'm like, okay, we're gonna try this for 1 week, and I'm gonna rate my life better or worse. And like the first time you hire a housekeeper, you're like 100% better. Like,
No doubt.
like
Well, my challenge, Jen, sometimes is getting people on the bus at my office to delegate to others, right? And so I can't just be only delegator. You have to have I feel like a culture of delegating is healthy. It's okay. It helps us advance forward.
well, I say to our team a lot, like my sign, well, we have the sign, it's right here behind me, but it says a sign of a great leader is someone who builds leaders below them. So, like, if you're thinking you're really good, I want you to honestly think about, I'll say this to team members, like, how many leaders do you have below you? Because, if something happened to you or if a new opportunity came where you could go to a new level, like if in a high growth firm, you never know the seats that are going to open up. Like we're creating new roles that have never been there. So I'm like, if you want to position yourself for opportunities in our company, you need to be building leaders below you, because if your department cannot afford you to leave, you're not going to get that opportunity.
Yeah, no, there's no question. I know. I believe it's Cameron Herold. He talks a lot about developing leaders, right? He spoke at the recent Film Conference. I thought that
Yes.
was
I
that was
love
important.
Cameron. He's
Oh
so
yeah, he's very he's doing things at super high level. So can we just? I'm always interested in sort of like the come up. Like you start your practice, you get barred, you hang a shingle. Not pretty much what I did, but like what did you do? I was like, this is. I started mine in 2005. I was putting ads on Craigslist. I was getting clients. I was hustling. My wife and I once, Jen, went to a supermarket parking lot and put flyers on cars. I mean, just getting after it. I didn't know any better. So it's like, you got to think how far we've come. It's crazy. What did you do to hustle? How did you get business when you first started?
So I started the firm in 2013, and I went to people that I went to law school with and said, I'm starting my own firm. I started a social media thing right away. I started a newsletter. I started a lot of marketing, like basic things to create referrals. And then I started going around and meeting chiropractors and doctors. And I would say, like, I'll come here and sign people up right here in your office whenever
Yeah.
you, like, I'm on the phone. I mean, it was just a lot of like hardcore hustling. Previous to this, I had done cold calling. Like, obviously we can't do that, but I had done door-to-door sales. So I felt like I was already like aggressive. And so I think like the closest thing to door-to-door sales and cold calling you can do is like go to medical offices or go to lawyers' offices and say, like, if you get business, will you send it to me? You know? And that got my practice to a certain level. But I think a lot of people burn out at that level because like that level is not really like scalable.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I haven't seen anyone that I know personally that's been able to take, you know, a purely referral based business and 100% scale it to like 10 times the size.
It's leverage, I feel like, right? It's all about leverage and leveraging, systems, people who are helping you, right? But from the start, from the jump, the ink is drying on your bar card. You're hustling. You got to, I
Just
don't know about you.
hustling, asking for the business. But then, like, after a time, I realized like this isn't scalable. And so I started doing more advertising and marketing and paid things.
You have to.
Like a big transition is like trying to move into paid marketing and trying to figure out what marketing works. You have no idea. You have no idea what's reasonable. You have no idea what things should cost. And building our online real estate, building digital case acquisition, that all, and I remember being so frustrated. Like, I just want 10 more cases. And
Yep.
I just like couldn't figure out how to get 10 more cases consistently. Cause I didn't want like 10 more cases by referral that could randomly come or not come or whatever. And then I started to realize like my law firm was going to be scaling a lot faster than most of my referral partners. So unless these referral partners are growing 10x, they're not going to be able to sustain sending you the same volume of work.
100%.
So that was tricky. But then like I started figuring out like, oh, I would go study different law firms and I would like see like how they're getting cases. And, organically after you start doing good work for a time, you can start marketing to your past and current clients. And that does seem to bring in a lot of business. And then it kind of gets bigger and bigger over the years because you now have like a 5,000 person list that you're marketing to, right?
All right. Another thing, I hope people are writing that down. Your list is everything, right? People who know me, I always talk about my list. People who know you, like you, and trust you. That's so neglected, Jen, by so many lawyers. I know you know that, right?
It's crazy to me that you represent somebody for a certain period of time. How are you going to sustainably stay in touch with them? We even do things where we run Facebook ads to people who we've previously represented to remind them we still exist.
Same. Yeah. A lot of people aren't doing that, but it's just so easy. That's leveraging a database. We do a paper newsletter, email, we hit people, pretty consistently, and it's a value. It's not like, hey, your car accident lawyer. It's like contributing value to the universe, right? And putting stuff out there because, oh, another thing from Earley, delete, unsubscribe. It's not like some piece that maybe helps them in some way, some value, right? Showing up, trying to help in some small way. If they unsubscribe, well, then that's cool. I'm okay with that.
Yep. Yeah. So it's been really good. It was so frustrating through different periods of time, like trying to get to new levels and like, installing like a marketing director and like getting people that they own a department, installing people that they are responsible for the growth was a big game changer. And we started going to a lot of conferences. I started trying to learn more and more how to grow the caseload. And then at the same time, trying to grow the average case value so that we didn't have to get as many cases to increase our revenue. So I just became like an obsessive lifelong learner on how to study people. And I did hire a lot of business coaches. I started going to a lot of different events and just following like, okay, this person's having success. What are they doing? I want to study them.
I want to get into that. Let me just quickly get back to your start, right? Because we both did the same thing, basically. What would you tell a younger lawyer? Like, what's something you wish you did differently when you were taking that, when you burned the ships and went for it? What would you do differently looking back?
When I started my firm,
Yeah.
I mean, I hired a business coach at year 2 because like at that point I felt like I could justify the revenue of it. But I think hiring a coach immediately can save you a lot of time. The other thing I would say is hiring another attorney to come work for you. I waited too long. I probably waited till year 4 when I probably should have done it at year 2. Most of the things I did, I just wish I had done faster. But I think when in the very beginning, I had a little bit of imposter syndrome of like, I was 28. Like, who's going to come work for me? That's like an amazing attorney. That's what I was thinking back then. I'm so much more confident now in understanding that the way I think and the entrepreneurial mind that I have, most lawyers don't have. I didn't have an awareness of that at that time. I just thought everyone, thinks like me.
Well, when you're 28 years old, that's how old I was. And like I said before, these are better problems today than they were back in the day. I was living in a studio apartment. I was broke as a joke. I had no money at all. Like literally on the bottom floor.
Yeah, live very lean. All the money went back in the law firm.
Always.
But
Yeah.
I mean, I just think like I really know my value now and I know what my strengths are. And back then it would baffle me like why people weren't trying to scale their law firms. I'd be like, you've been in business for so long and you're not really like doing anything different year to year. And like, I didn't realize that was like my unique frame of mind. So I just think I wish I had the like insight I have now about my strengths. And I was more confident at the very beginning about, why I, should have an associate working for me.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's another thing, having, we said as executive assistant, I think everyone should have a coach. If you're serious about growth, I know you're all about coaching. I'm all about coaching. I just recently became a coach and I feel like, that's my regret. And there's no point in looking back, but I would have gotten a coach earlier. But once I got the coach, things just went bonkers. Totally. It just crazy. So are you still receiving coaching to this day?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I travel all over the country and I am in groups with law firms that are 10 times the size of my firm, maybe not 10 times, now maybe 8 times, at least, 170 people or more. And, my firm has about 42 people. I study them. I go tour. Another thing I started doing was I started going to people's law firms. So I've been to like 5 so far this year. And I go and see people's offices and I like ask their team, like I'll sit in with their litigation team and say like, well, why do you work here? Why do you like working here? And I am studying why these firms are successful or what thing, because each firm kind of has something they're really good at. And then they have things they have challenges with, right? Mm-hmm. But when you observe a lot of different successful firms, you just take away a lot of different unique takeaways, Yeah,
I think we're both students of this stuff, right? We're deep in the game of always getting better because there's always a way to move the needle in your business, in your professional development, your personal growth, right? And that's where the coaching comes into play. Do you provide coaching services yourself or you just receive coaching?
Yeah. So probably a year ago, I started getting like people calling me and saying like, will you coach me? Because like I was starting to become, I don't know, like every coaching program I get involved in, I'm just like 100% all in. And every mastermind, I want to give it I want to do everything well. And so invariably I become like the front row student. Like if you'd see me at a conference, I'm in the front row. I don't mess around. I'm asking 100 questions. I'm aggressive. I'm curious. I'm trying to become best friends with different people there. I'm like, give me your cell phone. Let's talk. So I started making like a name for myself, I think, within the industry where people started seeing like, well, she's learning from these people. I want to like learn from her as like, maybe that's like, I'm like in a different level, but I'm still way further than where they are.
No, I hear you. I hear you.
I also feel like I don't know how I'm 39, but like a lot of my mentors are in their 60s or 50s. And I feel like I'm trying to position myself like these people will eventually retire and leave.
Yep.
And like I want to absorb all the talent and information that they have now. And I want to be in, 10 or 15 years, like in the position they're in where we're like the leaders of the industry. And so like that is like there's only so much time we have with the people who've built the firms they've built.
Yep.
I also feel like my story of how I built my firm is dramatically different than some of my mentors because they grew up in a different time. Their firms were developed in the 90s and in the 80s, the early 2000s, and the personal injury market was very different then. And TV was king, and just a lot of things were very different. So a lot of the stuff I provide, I think I provide some of my mentors' value as well because I'm like the younger generation. I'm like thinking about things in a different way. Like a lot of their new consumers are thinking more like me. And so we help each other. And I think any coach you have, you should strive to provide value to your coach as well. And my goal with anybody I interact with is I want to provide more value than they provide me.
100%. I see you on social. You go to a lot of conferences. I got to ask you, I go to a lot of conferences too. My wife is like, hey man, chill. I'll go to like probably 10 a year, but I see you probably maybe even go to more. How do you carve the time? Obviously, you're a student and you're devouring this knowledge, but how do you find the time to travel so much?
I think the better my business is run, the more time I have to go and learn. A lot of times the leadership team at my firm feels like the best place for me is to be the visionary and to be out in the forefront, trying to seek new opportunities for the firm, trying to find new connections, new channels for marketing. So like, that's really the seat that I live in. And fortunately, I built the firm to a point where most of the firm can run without me on a day-to-day basis. I always attend my leadership meeting, even if I'm traveling. It's very rare that I miss that, but I've earned the right, frankly, to leave the business and travel and do the work that I'm doing now because I have not just like left this firm in a lurch. They all have what they need to do their work.
So I'm very sensitive to how much work that took because you're speaking my language there, right? So there's some people on this call that resonates with them. They've literally busted their butt so that they could sit in a conference and the wheels are turning back home at the office and cases are moving. That is hard work, right?
I'm in a conference. We're signing cases. Money's coming in the door. Checks are being deposited. Clients' cases are being moved. Demands are going out. Litigation's being filed. You're right. That is a lot of work that I got to put in.
So hard.
I think there's a lot of people at conferences that when they go to a conference, the entire firm comes to a halt.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Then there's something wrong. Then we have a systems issue. Maybe there's a bunch of issues that are red alarms or, there's fires going up. There shouldn't be any fires. It should be smooth sailing. And once I got going to conferences and it was humming without me in the office, I was like, oh, there's always something else. But again, I keep saying it, better problems than it was, back in the day.
So when I had my third child, I took a 2.5 month off-grid maternity leave. And I left the firm for 2.5 months and it ran without me.
Wow.
And that was a really important chapter that we went through in the firm. And it took us 7 months to engineer it. And it really liberated me and made me realize that, the things that I thought no one else can do, it was not true. And in fact, I was basically constantly stepping in the way and creating chaos for my team when they really could do a lot of stuff if I would just give them the space.
Well, that's a real test. Even 2 weeks, but you talk about 2.5 months for it to move without you and maybe even, like you said, prosper.
No, it made the same money as when I was there.
Okay. But I feel like sometimes as a business owner, I can get in the way sometimes.
Oh, I was really having to sit with myself and think, what was I doing there for 40, 50, 60 hours a week if they're making the same money?
I know. You got to ask yourself that. I know. When did you start going to conferences?
I was in a coaching program for 5 years that was called How to Manage a Small Law Firm.
Mm-hmm.
And that program, you met quarterly. And so there was a conference every single quarter. And then there was workshops like every other month. So when I was in that program consumed a lot of my time because you would be going to, 4 conferences a year, plus you'd be going to like 2 or 3 workshops. So when I was in that program, I really didn't go to a lot of outside events. But then when I left that program, I didn't even know there was a whole other world of conferences and all these started. So I started going to PILMA and I started going to like all these different things that I would hear about. And now I feel like I know all the conferences because I go to all of them, pretty much all of them I've been to. And I think it's been really fun to go to different things and everybody's got a different perspective and something different to teach. And you kind of take all of that and you can kind of like decipher what speaks to you and then like what parts you don't agree with and kind of make your own thing.
Yeah, you become more discerning because well, that conference wasn't so good. Maybe I'll avoid that one, or I need to try this one.
However, I do have a belief that 50% of the conference is about the people you're trying to meet, the conversations you're having in the hallway, the one connection you can make that could change the course of your firm. And in addition to that, it's building your name and your brand in the industry and also spending time with your vendors and really seeing who are the new vendors and what's going on that like when you go to those vendor rooms, like what's up here, who are the people that are really successful, who are they talking to, who are they working with? You need to be observing and watching. The content is 50%, but this whole other side, I think people are not good at.
I agree. And the more conferences you go to, you hear a lot of the same, maybe content sometimes, right? But I'm just looking for a couple nuggets. And I think it's all about the hallway. And I said before, my wife is kind of like, Chris, I wish you didn't travel so much. But I can tell you and I tell her when I get on airplanes and I come back, the law firm just got better. I just got better. I have, a lot of good stuff to bring back. And it always brings a return on investment of time, right? And it's hard because you miss time at home. So I try to like minimize the disruption as much as possible. I had Seth Price. Seth is obviously a conference. He's at everything. He was on the podcast yesterday and asked him this question. I'm going to ask you this question: if you go to just one conference each year, you only get one. Why? Which one and why?
No, I wouldn't. I wouldn't only go to one. I think I wouldn't. I think the Fireproof Summit is really great.
Okay.
But I'm a part of the Fireproof program and they're jammed with just value. And I think that they share real numbers, but you have to be like a member of Fireproof to go to that. So I think that's a really good one. But I go to different ones for different reasons and different things. And you see different people at different events and you learn. But I'm in mastermind, so I don't even know if you consider those conferences. But those are private events that I would never miss.
Yeah.
Those are, I think, where you get more the real deal of what's going on.
Yeah, it's more intimate.
I would probably say the masterminds and the private events are more value than the big events. But like recently I've gotten into mass torts and I'm starting to study that. And I'm really interested in what's going on in the mass tort world.
Me too.
So that's a whole nother thing that has nothing to do with, and then, there's just so many, I'm involved in Trial Lawyer University and all that because we're building up our litigation team. So that's totally different value. And I wouldn't be able to say just one, but, I think you do have to have like a purpose for going there and you have to make yourself known when you show up to events.
Yeah. Yeah. Don't be shy. You got to shake hands and talk to people.
I think for me, it's easy. You too. It's like, I'm a people person. I love going to conferences. I have friends that say the conferences suck the life out of them.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a lot. It can be a lot sometimes, but some people get energy from it,
I love it. I love meeting new people. I'm insanely curious. I want to I feel like it's like a glitch in the matrix. Like you could go to one event that changes the entire course of your firm. I mean, that's happened to me so many times. I can remember going to Pilma one time and finding out about this intake software that changed the course of my firm.
Right.
I was
That's the nugget I'm talking about. That one thing you if it's just that one thing that just changed the game.
So then it's like, if you don't go, like, what's happening? You like,
I know.
it's
FOMO.
like, it's hard to find people that love to geek out over the stuff that we love. So
Yeah.
also so fun to be around people that really love to talk about this stuff, because most people in your life don't want to hear about this.
They don't care. They don't want to talk about it. So I have to like ramp it down. Even with my wife, it's like, she's like, oh my God, will you chill out on this stuff?
And then you're like at an event and you're talking about intake for 4 hours.
She's like, I don't care.
Yeah.
Oh boy. So Ken Hardison, a mutual friend, he invited me to speak at Miami NTL. Are you going to be going to that event in January?
We'll be there.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm going to be speaking. Anyone listening, you should definitely go to that. That's a good event. So Seth said that's the one event he'd go to if he had only one he could go to. He'd go to that one. And
Right.
that is it's really good.
Event. It kind of hits a lot of the different categories, which is why, and it has a huge crowd. One thing I've been frustrated lately is I do feel like there's just so many events, and some of them, it's like, when there's not that many people that show up, it's like, it's not as good, I think. Some of these events get kind of watered down.
Yeah, some can be duds, And you talk about masterminds. I'm really into masterminds too, and I'm sure that I assume you're the same way. You've probably left masterminds that maybe you grew out of. Is that fair or no?
Yeah, you should expect that you will outgrow different people. If you ever get in a situation with a coach where you feel like they're not like excited for your growth, because you could grow faster than your coach, and then that can create discord.
I know.
But also, like, you should always feel like, I'm always on the lookout for new mentors and coaches. And I'm also of this belief, now that I've done this for a long time, that I never have like one coach.
Mm-hmm.
I have like a variety of coaches, and I have what I would consider a board of advisors, but ultimately it's my decision. I've been in a situation where I had one coach and they, were very like, I almost feel like I never wanted to like let them down. And I got myself in a situation where it was like group think, where I only wanted to believe what this coach said.
Yeah.
And a very dangerous frame of mind. So I'm much more like, okay, this person says this person says this, and then I'm going to like kind of look at all these and come to my own. There's no coach that can literally tell you exactly what you need to do, because you're living in a different time. They can give you guidance, but you have to like use your own intuition, and you need to be building your own intuition as a business owner.
Constantly. Oh yeah. But that's the thing, is you grow out of coaches. Isn't that the whole point of it? It's like, just keep growing, keep moving up.
And I think the people that are really high growth that I've had as coaches, they kind of continue to grow. And so we kind of grow together, but there are people that they get threatened if you really grow. Yeah.
And that's unfortunate, but I mean, that's just, I guess nature of the beast. It's a competitive environment, especially with PI. Let me ask you this. So, you've figured out the business, it's humming along, the wheels are.
I figured out the business. I would say this is a work in progress, but
fair. But you've made, very impressive strides, right? Because again, I know what you're doing because I'm doing it myself, and it's hard work. But take 2.5 months off, that's doing something nice. Like that's really good. But let me ask you this though: what keeps you up at night? Is there anything in particular with your business that you're just like, tough pain point sometimes to figure out?
When you say keeps me up at night, do you mean like something that I'm worried about currently in the firm, or something in the future?
Well, yeah, or whatever you want to share. Anything I kind of like is uncomfortable sometimes.
I'm like a very futuristic person. So one of the things that keeps me up at night is the future of personal injury. I'm always like kind of living in the next 5 years. And I want to make sure that, all this work and everything we're doing here, we're building something that can be sustainable over the next 30 years. So that's why it's very important to me to stay on the very cutting edge. There's a lot happening, the AI and everything in our industry that we need to stay super aware of, because if you don't think that you have a business that could be completely upended overnight, then you're clueless.
Yeah, 100%. You got to
So
stay ahead. I think that's a good mindset. Let me ask you this: what's your greatest success in life so far?
my greatest success is that I live pretty much on my own terms. And I live a life that I would say 95% of women around the world don't live the way I live. I have a lot of luxury in my time, how I spend my time. I take really good care of my health. I have a lot of time to spend with my kids. And I feel like every day, no matter where you see me, I'm pretty much there because I want to be there.
Mm-hmm.
And freedom is one of my core values in life.
That's
And
what it's
I
all
get
about.
yeah, but for a lot of people, that's not something that drives them. It's something that drives me. And I get to live a life that is very meaningful. I live a life with a lot of purpose, and I get to do things I'm really passionate about. And that is success in life. It's personal, financial, and professional success. And I feel like in all those areas, I mean, I don't have a perfect life. I have my own problems.
Of course.
But every year I feel like I'm getting closer to being the most authentic version of myself and living in the most purpose.
I don't know if you're like this, but sometimes my mind works like if I'm just working to get to this endpoint, this goal, but there is no endpoint. It's a journey.
No, I want to be in the game. I want to work till I'm 90. I mean, I want to be work optional. Like I don't have to.
Yeah, yeah.
I am the type of person that I'm very self-aware that I need to have a purpose. And if I can contribute and give back and create value, I'm going to be happier doing that than just sitting around.
Let me ask you
So
this.
gotta love the game.
But I think when you figure a lot of when the process of figuring this stuff out, it does become a game in a way. It's like gamification almost. Like, how can I move this pawn to get this move on the board? That's high level stuff. That's why you invest so much. And the conferences, the mastermind, the coaching, right? Level up, and always getting better and better, right?
But if your analysis is part of my analysis is I want to see my full potential. And I think it comes from my crazy childhood, right?
No, I hear you.
So it's like, okay, how far can we take this? How amazing could this life be? Because how I live today, I couldn't have even imagined maybe 5 years ago. I mean, I had a big vision, but the day to day, the opportunities that I have today, I never could have really foreseen. And Oprah will say, the life she has, she couldn't have even imagined it in her wildest dreams, right? So I want to push that. I want to see how far can we take this of doing incredible things, working alongside the most brilliant people in the world. This is incredible, the life we get to build.
Oh, it's we're living where we want to live, right? In this space, right? And that's freaking awesome. What's one book that's had a big impact on you, either personally or professionally? One book.
The book that originally changed my life is called Think and Grow Rich.
Love it.
You know that book?
Yeah, I read it a few times. I wish I read it 10 years before.
I read it every year.
Oh, really?
It's supposed to read it every year, and you can kind of get different things from it. But I my license plate is mindset. I'm a big mindset person. And I think that, that is the original personal development book.
Yeah, that's the tome on personal development. A really good book I'm in the middle of right now is Psycho-Cybernetics. It's
I've heard of that.
It's good. It's probably right up your alley. It's very in line with that. It's from the 60s, but it still holds true. I'm really, Jen, getting into visualization. I literally think about holding a big fat check. I think about going on a 3-month, 4-month vacation, right? Not working. I think visualization is really important because then
I'm big into that too. I do things where I write things all over my mirrors and I post sticky notes everywhere, and I just like even 3 months ago, I went in the firm and I wrote like, we will have all these different things. And like, I swear my team thinks it's insane, but it starts showing up like almost immediately.
It's crazy. It's crazy.
Yeah. I think you get in life what you expect. So you have to be very careful the limiting beliefs you're holding, the things you're expecting, and like the things you tell yourself about your life. Like, it's very easy to get into a bad frame of mind, and then you're in a perpetual negative loop.
That's the thing, right? I mean, at law school, there's so much dread, and we're trained to think so critically and negatively. Entrepreneurship is about opportunity, and glass is, flowing with opportunity, right? It's not half empty. And that, I know you're a mindset person. I'm a mindset person too, because without the right mindset, you don't go very far, right? That's really.
This lady, Carol Dweck, she wrote this book called Mindset, and it's all about the difference of like a fixed mindset or a growth mindset. And it does shock me, like how many people are in a very fixed mindset, frame of mind. But lately, I think when you get into all this mindset stuff, the risk for someone like me and you is to get into this frame of mind where we think we know it all. And so I'm always challenging myself to like find the edges of where I'm still uncomfortable. Where are the things that like still make me uneasy?
Right.
Because that's still the area I have to grow.
Oh yeah. Right. It's a never-ending.
It is very difficult to live this life. Like there's people I've had to leave behind. When you want to live a life like on the 1% or 2% of like living your wildest dreams, like there's a lot of sacrifice and things that you might not think you ever have to do that most people aren't willing to do.
No. It's not for the faint of heart. We're playing, it's a big game, right? We keep saying that, but it's true. This is hard stuff. You got a lot of people depending on you, right? And so do I. And that's a lot of pressure, right? I try not to think about that too much, but if we've gotten this far, how much further can we take this? Like you said.
Well, I view it as those people are the ones rowing the ship, not me. I mean, I'm captaining the ship, but they are the ones doing a lot of the work. So yeah. I don't feel the pressure of carrying them. I feel they carry themselves and they create the value. But I do think that every level, it's like new level, new devil. There's something you think you've mastered something, there's something else. And in order to continue to grow, like for you to become the owner of a $20 million law firm, you have to become the owner of a $20 million. There's people that have a $20 million law firm. They're not thinking the way you're thinking. They are thinking in different planes. And so the challenge is to step up, to become a better leader, to use your time more effectively, to hire and like bring in the right people that can run the organization. And like, for me, it was really hard this past year, like letting go of some of the financial controls of the company. That's been a real challenge for me over the years.
I hear that.
I've like really pushed myself this year out of my comfort zone to try to like delegate more.
Yeah. That's hard. That's a hard space. And I'm sensitive to that. I get that. I do.
But it's like, if you don't, you will become the thing that chokes the business.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. You're the bottleneck in that type of situation. But I'm with you on that. I really appreciate your time. You're doing things at a high level. I love what you're doing. I'm super impressed. You're very easy to find. You're on social, you're all over the place. So I encourage everybody listening to this, reach out to Jen, right? She's a reservoir of knowledge. She gets into it. And I love that. I love this conversation. Thanks so much for your time, Jen. It was a really nice conversation.
Thank you for having me. You're doing amazing things, and I'm glad you're sharing the business side of law because it's just so needed.
Yeah, for sure. All right, that's it for this episode of The Earley Show. Be sure to check out more episodes of our show on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and the Answering Legal YouTube channel.